Mystique is a character that folks kept theorizing was going to pop up all over the place in season 1 of X-Men 97. I know I felt like I was seeing her everywhere. I really thought at one point that Val actually might be Mystique, especially with the way that she spoke to Magneto when he was Bastion's prisoner, but sadly we got no dramatic Mystique reveals in season 1 of X-Men 97. However, that could mean we are due for one or more then by the time we get season 2 of X-Men 97. I know I am due for a Mystique fix, and I think a lot of people out there are too. The question is, if Mystique wasn't in season 1, what has she been up to this whole time? Like how Sabretooth was also noticeably absent, a lot of folks are wondering what some of our favorite recurring villains were doing while the Mother Mold and Prime Sentinels attacked. I don't know, but I'm personally hoping their absence means that they were busy laying low, taking advantage of the chaos, and taking their time to come up with some truly dastardly schemes for season 2 and beyond. Vulcan is a character that was teased at in season 1. Well, he was more than teased at actually. He actually had a cameo in the season 1 of X-Men 97, but it was a very small cameo. Some folks were even theorizing in this past season that Vulcan could have more of a prominent role, with him potentially being a part of a larger storyline that we've seen before in the comics, Deadly Genesis. Honestly, although this didn't come to pass in season 1, Deadly Genesis may still be in the cards for season 2. Whether or not we do Deadly Genesis though, I do hope that we get significantly more Vulcan in season 2. He's just such a cool, complex, and extremely powerful character. We saw this character appear at the end of season 1 of X-Men 97, and I know I personally am very excited to see where he goes next. And Sabah Nur, for those who are unfamiliar, is himself Apocalypse, although a much younger version of that character. And Sabah Nur was the name Apocalypse originally went by during his time growing up in ancient Egypt. This is also one of the places we spy Apocalypse at the end of season 1 of X-Men 97. For me, I was waiting all season pretty much for Apocalypse to come in, and him showing up right at the end of season 1 of course bodes well for our chances of seeing him in season 2. I'm also wondering, as the X-Men are meeting him at a younger age, if this version of the character specifically might be more reasonable and even possibly become an ally of the X-Men, at least in this time period, who themselves have been thrown through time and ended up back in ancient Egypt, of course on Earth. Dazzler is another X-Men member that I'm certainly looking forward to seeing in season 2. If we get her back, of course. Dazzler is one of the mutants who was shown in season 1 of X-Men 97 as a cameo, but tragically she was confirmed as being killed during the attack on Genosha. Honestly, pretty rude of them to bring in one of my favorite X-Men characters in this continuation, and then in the same episode just kill her off. Dazzler's had a rough go lately, let's be real, but I'm hoping with her miniseries being announced for the comics, and possibly us getting a Dazzler appearance in Deadpool 3, who knows, that Daz might also be able to make a return in the animated series. The question is, how will she come back if she does come back? Maybe, as so many have been theorizing in regards to other, more prominent mutants, we could see her return as a Horseman of Apocalypse. When Bo DeMeo told us our homework was revisiting the pilot for X-Men Pryde of the X-Men, you bet I was excited about that. I thought this could be a hint that we get to see Kitty Pryde appear as an ally, or perhaps even join the team. However, you can imagine how I felt when I realized this was not the case. I was also studying every single detail of that pilot, but overall I feel like it was just because there is stuff in that episode that is referenced in the show, and that's why we were supposed to go back there. Still cool, but not as meaningful, I guess, as I was hoping. I was digging for a way bigger meaning than what I got. A lot of people believe that Kitty's absence in the X-Men the animated series actually has to do with the fact that the Pryde of the X-Men pilot was not successful. But honestly, if that's the case, Kitty doesn't deserve to be punished like that. It's not her fault the pilot didn't work. Hopefully in season 2 we can finally see some redemption for Kate and see her introduced as a fellow X-Men member, something I've been waiting for a while. At least in regards to this series, obviously. Onslaught is another character who some theorized we might see in this season in X-Men 97, but it seems, like in the comics, if or when we choose to go there, the road to Onslaught will be a long one. Onslaught is technically a combination of two characters we've seen already in regards to the secret identity of the immensely powerful villain and psychic entity in those comics. Onslaught is made up of the combination of Charles Xavier, Professor X's, and Magnus Eric Lenscher, Magneto's psyches. When Charles shuts down Magneto's brain, a part of Eric's psyche basically imprints on Charles, sticking with him and also activating kind of the latent darkness that Charles has within himself, which he does his best to bury deep deep most of the time. Not the healthiest way to deal with your negative emotions, but I digress. These two psyches intertwine and create an all-new entity which is extremely powerful, exhibiting the strength and power of both of these individuals, known as Onslaught. Onslaught was such a big threat that he actually threatened all of the heroes of Earth at one point, and even seemingly defeated many of them, until we later learned that insanely powerful child of Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman, Franklin Richards, had actually saved everyone by creating his own pocket universe to keep them safe inside at the moment Onslaught would have otherwise destroyed them. Is season 2 where we could potentially see Onslaught, or will we have to wait even longer than that? Gambit is a character that we still all miss far too much for him to not return next season. Some even thought he'd return as soon as season 1, but I knew better with how epically he went out. I was like, too epic. He's not gonna be back right now or anything like that. Of course, this is comics, or a comic inspired animated show rather, so I've never expected him to be gone for good. Also, he's Gambit. If he was gone forever, I don't think I could accept that. I don't think many people could accept that. Instead, after his epic sacrifice in episode 5 of X-Men 97 season 1, the cards at the end of episode 10 seem to be all laid out to suggest that we'll see Gambit return as a version of the character many comic book fans are already familiar with, and even theorized about. That would be the version of Gambit that is Death in the comics. Now, not the Death, not Lady or Mistress Death, but instead one of Apocalypse's 4 horsemen, known as Death. Yes, like the 4 horsemen of the Apocalypse from the Bible, but instead we're ushering in a massively powerful mutant who could end the world, as opposed to just straight up the end of the world itself objectively. Gambit was once Apocalypse's Death before in the comics, and with Sabah Nur and of course his older self Apocalypse making an appearance at the end of season 1, it seems likely that Gambit will return in this capacity. The question is, who will be filling the roles for the other 3 horsemen? Obviously, if there is anyone I want back in season 2 the most out of anyone we've had, it is Madelyne Pryor. Surprise, surprise. And yes, I know what you were about to say, but Amanda, isn't Maddie currently deceased? You want Dazzler back? You want Maddie back? They're gone. According to former showrunner on X-Men 97, she's gone. However, this is superhero land, and often in the world of comics, death is not quite as permanent as we think. Also, consider the fact that a new showrunner will be taking over for future seasons. So while Beau DeMayo did a lot of the writing for season 2, there's still some wiggle room there to potentially change stuff moving forward. And let's keep in mind that some writers will often mislead the audience so that they can surprise them later. So it could just be that DeMayo was telling a little white lie so he could later surprise us with Maddie's return, or he could have simply meant, you know, she was dead, or rather completely vaporized for now. With Maddie being such a big hit in season 1, I personally think they'd be fools not to bring her back at some point in the future. Also in the comics, once believed dead / defeated, she certainly does not stay that way. So, you know, I'm just saying, it's happened before, it can happen again. That's about it. I'm your host Amanda McKnight. Until next time, you stay nerdy, YouTube.